her because she's the only one that wasn't already introduced. Go ahead, Gilbert.
Okay, I wanted to provide a little background on the development of this session. This session was developed in response to feedback to the RTalk from tribes concerned about outreach and education elements within their work plan and possibility of ideas for outreach and education during this pandemic time and not being able to meet with tribal members. And this section will provide some examples via one coalition and two tribal grantees on what they've been doing during the COVID. So with that, next slide, we'll move to get into it. Outreach and education under GAP. GAP Guidebook Appendix I, B6, establishing core public participation, community involvement, education, and core capacities. The indicators under that are B6.1 through B6.10. Section B6 indicators relate to developing general outreach and education methods and routes capacity. Please note that methods and routes do not reference whether they are remote or face-to-face. And this helps us in this time of the pandemic because we can do remote sessions and still, now that we can't meet face-to-face with tribal members. So that area, we can still meet our requirements, but do it online. I'd like to bring in Destinee Cooper, my colleague. Next section.
This slide goes over the other indicators that are in the GAP guidance for doing outreach and education. Now, I'm clearly not going to walk through every single one of these, but again, the main focus and highlight of this is that none of these indicators specify whether or not you guys are doing outreach and education face-to-face or remotely. So what it is about is building the capacity for tribes to be able to do outreach and education. In those circumstances, it is about testing your methods, it's about testing your means, and it has to do with what your guys' goals are. So if the goal is to teach the community about air quality, then figuring out whether or not you're doing it remotely or face-to-face could be a change in your method, but it could still help you, you could still sort of test how you're achieving that goal of teaching your community about air quality. I'm going to kind of pause on this for a second because I know there's a lot of information in here. One of the things that we highlighted was that section F doesn't actually have a specific outreach and education indicator in here. If you have questions about this one, you can actually refer back to section B that Gilbert just went over and talk to your project officer about it. The thing that I always remind folks when talking about indicators is to remember that the indicator is describing the endpoint. So all of the work you do up to what's described in that indicator is what's eligible under GAP. That's how you're showing you're documenting building capacity. And then once you're at the indicator, that's where you're doing more implementation work. For outreach and education, we realize this can be really confusing because we know you guys want to actually do outreach and education. So what it ends up meaning is that you guys have to show how you're changing things from year to year or how you're testing things. And there's all these different indicators that you can use in order to show that. So to go a little bit in and to specify and reiterate what Gilbert and I just said, we wanted to give you guys a slide that literally went over it piece by piece here. So GAP does not indicate or dictate the details of the methods, means, or routes being developed. And that again goes back to whether or not you're doing remote versus face-to-face. You can do it either way. GAP is interested in outreach and education commitments that emphasize developing capacity. So be a method, a means, or a route. Now, it may mean that during COVID, you have to check in with your project officer about whether or not you need to tweak your commitments, but it doesn't mean that it makes it automatically not eligible or that it won't be approved. Maybe because of how your work plan was written, you don't need a modification. You just are going to have to add more detail to your quarterly reports. So check in with your project officers if you feel like your work plan may not have allowed for remote outreach and education. We're gonna go ahead and jump in now with tribal examples and start with Brian. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and he's gonna jump on here.
So I need to be able to, right now my screen has been disabled to be able to share.
You go ahead and try again.
Okay. All right, can everybody see?
Yes.
Ah, thank you. One person can see. All right. And I'm admitting people as we speak too, apparently. All right. Well, welcome everybody. First of all, I'd like to go ahead and say that it's good to see everybody. This is obviously not as good as it would be to be in the Lake Tahoe at this time of the year. I was really looking forward to that ever since like I noticed it, but who knows, maybe someday we'll get back to like we did at Fort Bragg that one summer, and we could all be at a, once they get closer to a vaccine, we could be in a tent with open windows and be all distant toward one another, maybe for the first steps as we get closer to being able to be together once again. But anyway, this is the second best thing, right? I mean, we get to see each other, we get to see each other's faces, interact in a virtual way. And I always look forward to this conference. It's just nice. And I feel like it's a career enhancement to get to know one another and see what everybody's doing. I'm Brian Davidson. I'm with the Intertribal Council of Arizona. Some of those who know me, I've also worked for the state of Arizona. I was their tribal liaison, and I worked for the US EPA for some time. But for the past 7 years almost, I've been with the ITCA. So now I'm on the other side, actually trying to implement programs. We're a consortium of the different tribes in Arizona. I'm trying to forward my slides. Aha, here we go. It's because I had to admit some people in the room first. So let's say this. Obviously, you know, Destinee and Gilbert painted the picture that right now we're in the situation where we originally had in our work plans that we had to engage with our communities. We had to do some training. We had to do some outreach. We had to do these, we had to be in these situations where we get community output. Our work plans involve planning, sometimes a plan with other people, parties, plans of action, trying to get consensus. And with this, we all have to have timelines. We have to implement these and follow up. So with these work involvement community plans, it involves education, community buy-in, community understanding, all of the above. And how do we get this word out? What is our new normal? Everybody's been asking that since at least March. What is the new normal? Distant learning, distant meetings, distant training. And basically what is hard for some is embracing technology. We are now live in this world where we have Zoom, Adobe Acrobat, everybody's either on their laptops or on their phones. And I'm also trying to admit people as I'm talking here. It's kind of difficult. I'm not that good of a multitasker, I guess.
So you know, you don't have to admit them. Any co-host can admit them.
Okay, okay.
We've got those covered for you, Brian.
They pop up and then I can't forward my slide until somebody has to do something about them. Anyway, so texting, Google document sharing, all of these different things. All of a sudden, everyone's becoming an expert on Zoom. You know, business Zoom counts are a little less than we find they're, if you don't have one yet, they're a little less than $200 a year. So they're not that steep. Usually your GAP programs will probably just talk to your project officer. Chances are they'll be able to cover it. And now we're having to, we've always had these in-person classes. I'm now having to train these trainers. how to use Zoom. We've had these trainers over and over that do HasWhopper. Everybody knows and loves Perry Hoskins. And then we have this couple that does the ICS, the Incident Command Systems training, and they're just used to doing these like in-person trainings, which is good. That's why we hire them. We want these people to come out and actually talk to the tribes and understand them and get to know them before they actually teach. And now they're like, I have to do this virtually. I have to look into this computer and actually accept this. And it's a very hard new normal for many of them. Preparation and time for these meetings have to come sooner. So it's very hard because everybody's having to look at this screen now all day long. We're ones that actually tell those trainers, say like, being in front of a computer screen all day long can be painful. So many breaks, in addition to, you don't have to have them there all day. Make sure that they know this information to be prepared to be in a situation, whether it's HasWhopper, whether it's ICS, that their instincts just kick in and they know exactly what they're doing. How to tell how well is this working out for your tribe? Meetings, sharing documents, community projects, publishing, and oops, hang on, went too forward. There will be other deliverables, commitments you will have to ask to change. There will be other deliverables you can accomplish, just not in the way you intended to accomplish them. Don't be too intimidated by going about another route for this. For your budget, allocating your money to the certain kind of meetings, to your Zoom meetings, allocating for, we now have, like, I have to now put on this HMEP conference where we are using a third party coordinating party that can actually it's going to be greater than Zoom, but everybody will have to get into a Zoom meeting. But they are organizing the different schedules, the different rooms, how to log on, if there are evaluations per breakout sessions, probably something very similar to what the EPA is doing. So we're going to go with a company called Cvents to actually help coordinate this. When we usually have this at a conference room in Prescott or somewhere else. New training software, perhaps, and you just have to make sure that you have your up-to-date laptops. So who does this really benefit? Consider this new normal an opportunity. First of all, this is very complimentary to millennials that we know. Millennials seem to be ahead of the game when it comes down to being able to embrace mobile devices, digital devices, and social media. They really know what they're doing. Show your and when you're at home and you're trying to do work, make sure that you do show your supervisor or your project manager that you are working. You're actually submitting work to them. You're showing the documentation. You're getting everything to them. And that's all I can say is that's the relationship between you and your supervisor or your project manager. Some of them don't want to be bothered all that much. And some of them they just want to be reassured that you're not at home, not doing anything. You're actually doing work. Show the community that you're working. Show them that even though that they're at home, you are setting up these opportunities for them to go to these meetings, to share their input, and that they're all still part of a community. This is your opportunity to reshape your workload to how you can envision it. So once again, this is an opportunity, not a hindrance. And if anybody has any questions as to how we do it a little bit more, I always have this one saying, what is good for the goose is not always good for the gander. I didn't make that up. It's just, it is a saying. And basically it means like what can work or has worked for one tribe doesn't necessarily mean that it's working for another. But at ITCA, we get all of the tribal environmental directors, solid waste and air quality people together in a room twice a year just to talk, to see, hey, this might be a problem for us. And this is how maybe a tribe had solved it. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be good for you, but it may give you some ideas. So just a thought. Other than that, thank you for your time. Samantha, it is your show now.
We're gonna, sorry, Brian, I'm gonna interrupt you. We have Teresa on, so she's next in line.
Okay.
We're gonna go ahead and depend on you, Brian, to start doing all the admins here.
Uh-oh, don't depend on me for that. Yeah.
That's okay. Teresa, let me know when you're ready to switch slides.
I am here and ready anytime. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Teresa Romero. I'm the Environmental Director with the San Ynez Band of Chumash Indians, and my project officer volunteered me to give a presentation today on our outreach. And we put together a little video, and we really had to rethink how we were meeting our deliverables across several different grant programs. And with the cooperation of my project officer, I was able to reallocate some of our funding to assist in our outreach. And what I recommend is really work with other departments on the possibility of collaboration in your outreach. We really partnered really well with the tribal clinic as well as our culture department on projects and built kits. We've done several video projects, which you'll see when we run the video. And definitely, I just really work with your project officer because they are there to help you and help you work through this really transitional and changing time. And so I'm going to go ahead and have the video run. And if anybody has any questions, please feel free to let us put them in the chat and we'll try to get to them. Thanks.
For some reason, it doesn't want to do it. We're going to do it this way. So Teresa, I tried this morning and for some reason it's not letting me show your video.
Well, let me see. That's really odd. Destinee, did I send it to you over OneDrive?
You did.
Okay, let me log in and see if I can start it on my end. I apologize, everyone.
Hi, are you still having issues?
Actually, I just got it pulled up.
Okay.
So I'm
And
gonna share
then,
my screen here again in a second.
Just make sure once you share your screen when that pop-ups, there'll be a little like checkbox on the bottom left hand of the pop-up that you need to click in order for everyone to get the sound through their computer.
Okay. Let's do it this way.
The first thing that we're going to do is take a look at our plant. We can see we have a lot of browning and yellowing, especially on our leaves, our stalks, and on the tips of our plants here. And that can actually be an indication of both too much water or not enough water. But you will notice if it's too much water, the leaves will actually be falling off. It's starting to basically rot the plant. So you can see our leaves are on here nice and tight. They're not going anywhere. The dead ones obviously will come off easier. But for the newer growth up here, you can see even though the plants are kind of yellowing at the tips, the leaves are still attached and they're in pretty good shape. the second thing you want to look at is the soil. So we are going to take a look at the soil to see if we have wet soil or dry soil. That will depend a lot on your soil type. Out here we did a soil test, which we'll show you in person when we all come out here. But a good way to do that is get a big handful of soil, put it in a jar and fill it about 3/4 of the way with water. Give it a good shake, and then you kind of let it sit for about 24 hours, and your soil levels will settle. And you can kind of see the different soil types in the layers. You'll have sand and rock at the bottom, silt in the middle, and clay, which is the smallest particle at the top. And out here we have a good mix of clay and silt, which actually holds a lot of water. When the soil is very saturated, it's going to stay wet longer, but the problem is when it dries out, it's really hard to rehydrate. So we really want to be careful when we're watering out here especially, not to let the soil get too dry, because that means that you're going to have to water even more to get it back to where it should be. You can actually also do a quick little test by taking a sample of your soil to see kind of the soil type, and if it's kind of wet, you can squeeze it, and if it holds its shape, you know that you have more of a silty clay. But if it's loose and kind of falls apart, it's a sand. And our soil is pretty dry right now, so you're seeing it's kind of crumbling and falling apart like it would with sand. But just by looking at it, you can tell that there's like very small, fine particles in here.
You want to harvest most of the plants that I'm talking about, the leaves and the flowers, when it starts to get a little warmer. So we usually try to wait until mid-morning, early afternoon to do chamomile, calendula, yarrow, tulsi, lemon balm, or mint harvests. And that's because the growing heat of the day brings a lot of the essential oils to the surface of the plants. And so they're a lot more aromatic, which again is that organoleptic clue that the medicine is really strong right then because of the warmer temperatures. Bees obviously love tulsi. They're all around, so I always apologize to the honeybees and tell them that the more I cut it, the more it will grow, which is also true of chamomile, calendula, mint, and lemon balm. So these are all plants, like a lot of native plants, that the more you prune them, the more vigorously they'll grow.
Teresa, I don't know if you have more you want to say, or are you ready to hand it off to Samantha?
Well, I'd just like to say that I have a really great team, and our outreach is across many different grants, and we've had to be really, really creative, and our team has been really, really creative. So definitely you have skills on your team that maybe are a little underutilized that can be brought out during these times. So, you know, I do think there are creative means to educate and provide outreach to our communities. That's all. Thanks, everyone.
And just so people know, we're saving questions to the end. So Samantha is going to go next.
Oh, it's a little arrow, maybe.
All right, you do it. All right, you guys are gonna have to bear with us. This is like our first Zoom meeting type thing. I've only done it for my kids for school. So seems like my first graders know how to use Zoom better than I do. So
Where's the little cup looking thing? Is it that thing? There we go.
all right. So we're just gonna share with you guys kind of some of the tribal activities that we've done during COVID-19.
First, we are just going to introduce ourselves. I'm Darin. I've been employed with the Shingle Springs Band of Miwok Indians for 11 years now. I have my degree in hydrology from UC Davis.
And I'm Samantha, and I'm Chickasaw, but I've been working for the Shingle Springs Band of Miwok Indians Environmental Department for the past 10 years. We've been managing GAP and our 2 water grants for over 10 years.
So we're going to go over 3 different methods and structures that we used for different activities during this COVID time.
So we have like a no contact activity or at home activity, small group activities, and then a method that we've been using is contactless delivery and pickup.
So every day upon entering the Rancheria, for employees, for tribal members, for any visitors, we're required to stop at our security gate to get screened. The screening consists of the security guards asking us a series of questions and then taking our temperature. If you have a fever, you answer yes to any of the questions, you won't be allowed on the Rancheria. And in some cases, you'll be required to go get a doctor's note before entering the Rancheria.
And once you're screened, you will get a sticker that's marked screen with a slip that states your name with the pass. You go ahead and wear a mask at all times in the tribal buildings, and you turn in the slip to the secretary, and you just keep your little screen sticker on. But you have to have a screen sticker and a slip to participate in any activities that may be going on or for entry. So we'll start with like our no contact activities. So if we're gonna have an activity that's like more than 20 people, we decide to do just no contact activities. So this activity, there's no contact at all. There's no screening process. It could consist of like an at-home activity.
We usually advertise for these activities in the tribal newsletter and using social media.
So, and then, so most of the small group activities, we can turn them into no contact activity, but we like to research some, we were calling them home activities. So like books or kits, observation journal, art projects, things like that, that they could do at home. We had dropped off aquaponics fish habitats at people's doors and gave them a lesson plan in hopes that the kids would, you know, fill them out, do the lesson plan, turn them in if they wanted to. Sometimes we offer little prizes or whatnot for them to turn in their work.
And then one of our grant tasks this year was to have a trash art contest to see what kind of art the kids can make out of stuff they pull from the trash. We were originally going to go down to our youth center and do this with them in person, but because of COVID, we had to turn this into a contactless activity. So we advertise for it in the newspaper, the newsletter. We will supply them with supplies if they need supplies. And then we have a set drop-off location that they can drop our projects off at.
And then at the end, we're gonna work with another department to do like a virtual art showing. So, and then I noticed my tribe, Chickasaw Nation, they've been downloading a lot of virtual videos, which have been awesome. So like one of them was a natural dyes video, and you can easily, go on their website and they have the step-by-steps on how to do it. I mean, just a ton of stuff like that on there, which I thought was really awesome. So I wanted to share that with you guys on that.
So next we have our small group activity that's led by an instructor. This is going to be in groups of 20 or less. Anybody who attends is instructed to wash or sanitize their hands before they enter the room. We make sure everyone's placed 6 feet apart. Masks and hand sanitizer is mandatory to attend the class. We'll provide masks and hand sanitizer for the class. We provide clean pens and notepads. We'll prop the doors open so less contact with the door. People don't have to touch anything. And we do not provide food at any of these meetings.
So what we pretty much started doing now is we literally just have a tote and it's full of hand sanitizers, masks, gloves, that kind of stuff. And we just carry it with us when we do any kind of activity or whatnot. So that's there provided. We always ask the instructor if they're even comfortable doing a setting like that. We really try to do it outdoors if possible. And we also go over the basic kind of COVID rules to make sure that, everybody's been screened. They're going to sneeze if they can do it into their elbow, but, you should be wearing a mask. And then we'll remind people to wash their hands or go use the hand sanitizer. If there's a break, we always instruct them to please go wash their hands or sanitize their wash before or after the activity.
If we are doing giveaway bags, we make sure to keep those until the very end of the activity to limit the amount of people going up to the giveaway table. So we'll pass them out at the end of the activity right before people leave.
And then to limit the spread of germs, that's why we were providing the clean pens and notebooks. So we just have them take it home. So there's no worrying about having to disinfect those again.
So far during this COVID time, we've done 3 of those. We have a composting class. We did a green cleaners workshop, and we originally in our work plan were supposed to go to a HAZWOP training, but we worked with our project officer to host it instead for employees who wanted to attend.
Okay, so small group activity, this one's more interactive. So everybody needs to go through a screening process for this. This is a group of 20 or less families, group families together since they are living at home together and they're in contact with each other. So we place the family 6 feet apart, mask and gloves must be worn, and then we designate a staff member to sanitize all tools and items between each use if tools are being passed back and forth through each family.
If it's a youth activity, we make sure the kids wash their hands in the sink every 15 minutes. We do put outside sinks out at the activities.
You can buy those now. Actually, they have outside sinks at Home Depot you can purchase.
The picture on this slide is of an activity we did that the kids decorated trash cans. And as you can see, we placed the tarps really, really far apart, and they're grouped only with their family members.
Yeah, and in this activity also, there was some families that didn't feel comfortable doing it as a group. So this became also a home activity where we went and dropped off the tools and the items needed to do it. So they were able to do it from the safety of their own home. They felt more comfortable, and then we pick it up for them.
Another thing that was kind of grouped into this type of activity is we just had our Rancheria cleanup day over the weekend where we supplied four 40-yard trash dumpsters that we spread out pretty far apart so that people could just drive up, drop the trash in them, and leave without having any contact with staff or each other.
Yeah. And then if you guys do like to offer food, because I know everybody loves food, we also came up with, doing a bag lunch. So it's completely sealed and ready to go. When the activity's done and they're leaving, you can offer them a bag lunch.
And the last one is contactless delivery or pickup. For this one, we will go to each tribal residence and drop off without having any contact with any of the tribal members.
And if the tribal members, sometimes they sit outside, So if the staff, if they're outside and staff shows up, we try to tell them, let's maintain a 6-foot distance, and we remind them that the office is following, COVID standards. We also include a letter with each delivery explaining exactly what is in the bag that's dropped off. The staff needs to wear masks and gloves during each delivery, and then they sanitize hands between each delivery. We made these little go kits that have masks and gloves and hand sanitizer in it, and it's in all the it's in all our work vehicles, but also our personal vehicles, because sometimes I use my personal vehicle. So I just have it in the side of my door, and I'm able to just do it real quick. And of course, if somebody's outside, if residents, they like to come in and give us hugs. So, I'll suggest a fist bump and then remind the resident that tribal offices are practicing social distancing, that kind of fun stuff.
An example of this is in our work plan. We always do an Earth Day every year. This year we couldn't do Earth Day, but usually we have, we get together, we plant our community garden, we give out little educational bags to all the kids who attend. We couldn't do that this year, so we took together bags for everyone that usually comes out to Earth Day, and we delivered them to everyone's houses.
And then I did care packages this year, where each department kind of got together and put something in a care package that was either dropped off or sent through the mail to the member. So we've had a couple of COVID-19 positive cases on the res. So the tribal offices, they immediately will close down for the remainder of the day, so they can have the cleaning crews come in and do a complete cleaning of the building. And people with direct contact are identified by contact tracers, and they're instructed to stay home. And of course, anyone's experienced symptoms or are instructed to stay home and visit their doctor.
So if we have any activities planned as a department, we'll cancel any small group activities that may have been planned for at least 2 weeks. We'll try to reschedule them if possible. If not, we'll shift them into a no contact activity. If
the positive case participated in a small group activity, we'll notify everybody that participated, and then we're going to go back and we're going to heavily sanitize all our tools and items that were used. I know we had a couple of kids out here that had some positive cases, and I felt real bad for them because they didn't get to be included in some of the activities. So Darin and I were able to put some home activity kits together and do a contactless delivery for them, so they didn't feel left out. I think that was my biggest thing, is a lot of the kids were feeling like they were not really being left out, but they were diseased. And it was really kind of sad. So we wanted to make sure they're still included. So that was a good way to do that. So, and then I think we're leaving questions to the end. But yeah, that's our presentation.
Well, we're now at the end. So if attendees have questions, this is the time to ask. I haven't actually seen any in the chat, but maybe I'm wrong.
It looks like we just had one question come in the chat from Cliff. The bags to community for Earth Day, how do you make that an eligible gap expense? And how does EPA want us to measure that output?
Sorry, guys, we're trying to figure out how to use Zoom again.
So while they're working on that, what I can say about the measuring the output, it has everything to do with what your agreed to deliverable is. That's one of the reasons why we say to go ahead and get a hold of your product officer to negotiate what that's going to be. It's not going to be one standard thing across the board. So it's going to have everything to do with what the individual grantee's goal was for doing that project. And again, that's part of the reason why you have to talk to your PO about it, is to figure out what is the output and deliverable that makes sense for that activity, given the goal that you as a grantee has. But what's your response, Samantha?
Oh, I was just going to say, so we took our grant task, and our Earth Day was to be focused on recycling. So we just made sure we included that in our bag that we handed out. And we also, of course, we had some other activities out of our water grants that we needed to do. So we added those in there to just kind of make it a real nice big giveaway bag. So that's how we kind of did that.
But it's also all about working with your project officer to modify what activity you might have had, because if you work with them, you can just make sure that everything is okay.
We had another question come in about the video, saying it's beautiful and very well put together. And how long did it take to put something like that together?
Well, I am exceptionally lucky because I have two people on staff who are really familiar with film production, and the longest task is actually editing. But I think it probably took her about not quite a day to do all of the editing and clipping all the various clips together. Because for our video today, we clipped together and did a montage from previous videos that we had. So that's what we had. So I'm really lucky because I do have two people on my team who are really, really familiar with film production. So I'm lucky in that way.
And just so people know, we are going to update the file that's on the website for this presentation because it's missing one of Teresa's slides. But once we get that update, everybody's contact information will be in the presentation. Are there other questions? Julianne?
Nothing else in the chat box.
I don't know if there's anybody that wants to speak up.
I would like to say I'd like everybody that's attended the session, give them thanks for being flexible. I know this time of COVID has been everything, and especially our environmental directors and them getting their work done, and them meeting with tribal members and that type of thing, looking for flexibility. So I appreciate that. The project officers will try to work with you on flexibility and schedules and stuff like that. So just reach out to us.
Yeah, I mean, I'd also like to say, I think almost every single, it wouldn't surprise me if most tribes out there had to ask for continuation in one grant or another that they've had to manage. It's just, I think Gilbert hit it on the head. Flexibility is key during this time. And one of our, we got an environmental education grant, which is focused completely around education outreach, constantly meeting with tribes. And that's just, we've had to turn that thing all the way around on its head and just say, all right, we got to figure out another way to complete this. So it's just been a challenge, and kudos for you if you could figure out some pretty ingenuitive ways to get it done.
And we just want to invite whoever needs any extra help. You're more than welcome to contact us over email and stuff. And if you have an activity that you can't figure out how to make, like a small activity with less contact or whatnot, just hit us up and we're more than happy to look it over maybe and help structure that for you or bounce ideas off. Or we are kind of missing that social interaction with other tribes during COVID. So we're more than happy to do that.
If there's not any other questions, I think we're done early, a few minutes early. Thank you everybody for attending. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of the sessions.
Thank you guys. You guys did great.
Thanks everyone.